Once again, I'm going to show you that I have the coolest friends in the entire world. I get the chance to be in the happy place today. I'm here in the studio in Carlsbad. My son and I just flew back from Sacramento. We got to see Steph Curry play against the Kings last night. And although he didn't win, we had a memory for a lifetime. Speaking about memories for me, I got a chance to be able to sit down. I had been hearing about this man that is the founder and president of a company called Zartico. It's a technology and data company in the tourism space. And one of the first of its kind. This guy is going to be super humble about it. I'm not going to be humble about it because, I mean, it is absolutely going to blow your mind, the things that he's doing. But when I heard about him, I was intimidated. When I met him, I felt like I was the only person in the room. I felt like he wanted to make me seem like I was the most important. And it was an incredible skill set that I experienced. It wasn't something that he was trying to show me all his accolades and show me all the things that he had done. It was him trying to shine light on everybody else in the room, and especially when him and I started talking, it was almost like I was the only person that existed. And so I wanted to have him on the podcast and be able to share him with all of you, because this is what I think a human being should be. This man is unbelievable. I got to just spend a day with him in Tennessee. James Dixon called it Nashville, but it was nowhere near Nashville. It was about 2.5 hours outside of there. And we sat in a green room, and it was incredible because here was this man that the whole entire audience, no one in the audience had even scratched the surface or come close to what he had accomplished in his life. But he was more interested in finding out what other people had done and wanting to promote what they had done and seeing how incredible his heart is. And that's the reason why I wanted to share him with you on the podcast today. So it's my honor, my pleasure to bring you not only the president and co-founder of Zartico, of a company that's literally changing the face of tourism. He also sits on 5 boards, but let's lay all that to the side because I get to share with you one of my good friends, Darren Dunn. Let's get this party started.
How you doing, Kelly?
Nothing more on my mind. I got 2 shines, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
Okay, here we go. 42 meetings, 17 days, a film crew, and an RV. Help me with this.
Yes. So myself and my co-founder, Jay Kinghorn, started our company, Zartico, originally named Entrada. Turns out that means entrance in Spanish and not so easy to trademark. So we changed to a company called Zartico because nobody likes names with Z. And we launched it June 1st of 2019. And the purpose, I've worked in tourism and technology my entire life. And my co-founder at that time, he was working for the state of Utah in tourism. I love to say he was probably one of my most challenging clients at my last company. But that's because he was so darn smart. And I knew I needed somebody smart with me. So we started up June 1st. We were meeting clandestine in hotel rooms and whiteboarding. And we were trying to think of every way that things could go wrong in starting a business. And I ran every scenario. I'm like, hurricane, 2 wars. Nope, we're going to be fine. Oil spill. Nope, we're fine. Global pandemic, complete shutdown of travel around the globe, not in the business plan. So we were roughly in business for 6 months going into the new year. Thankfully, we had just raised a little bit of money to help keep us going in those early days, and thankfully we raised it before the pandemic hit, because otherwise I think the investors would have pulled. And then March, mid-March came, and all of a sudden tourism shut down around the world. And my software is really focused on the tourism industry. So that would be quasi-government entities that actually promote destinations, such as Salt Lake City or San Diego. These groups are there to bring meetings as well as promote to leisure travelers to come and visit. And we had seen I had seen in traveling the world, and I did travel most of the world in my last job, which was also a software company focused on tourism. But there was a huge gap, and that's that all these, whether you were the richest of destinations, the Saudis, Japan, Dubai, or you're the smallest destinations, the Ogdens of the world, they all had the same problem. And that's that they had a lot of data, but none of it came together and made any sense. They did surveys once a year to try and take the temperature on, how many people came to visit. Is the millions of dollars we're spending, is it working? And so they do 3,000 surveys, which they get back in 3 months. So sometime in April or May, they would figure out how to market for the next year. And I just knew at that point that big data had gotten to the point where I felt like I could give these destinations feedback in real time as to how they're doing, to understand that somebody from Chicago is more valuable than somebody from Phoenix. No offense, Phoenix, just an example. So being able to understand that the day after they see some marketing, or the day after they interact with some content on your site, mm-hmm. we're able to tell if that's actually working and moving the needle. And the reason that's really important is because if they're marketing and let's say it's really working well and you're getting tons of visitors, well, your residents are going to gripe because there's too many visitors in town. And there's nothing you can do at that point except for wait for, you can't turn the spigot off because you don't know if it's working or not. So what we've done is, we're able to give people these destinations feedback in real time so they would know what to do the next day or the next week in order to modify it to make it a better experience for visitors and a better experience for the residents. Nobody's griping at the mayor, and they stay out of the papers.
And generally, this kind of information, Darren, to my understanding, was a city or a county or whatever it was. They would have to wait a year to be able to get the data to be able to adjust, and by that time, that opportunity is gone. Yes,
yeah, it's too late to really move the needle. So it's if you're going to market a destination, that's one thing. But if you're going to really help manage it through your marketing, that's a complete other thing. So managing it helps really balance out the ecosystem to make it a tourism a win for everybody. And nobody was doing this up until this time. And myself and my co-founder set out to do this. And like I said, we didn't see global pandemic coming. I can get into what happened next there as well. So
yeah. So I mean, get me to the RV, man. I mean, when I asked you about the growth in your company, we were talking, and you were like, the growth there was a hockey stick, but there was an RV before the hockey stick.
Yeah. So when the pandemic hit, we do 95% of our business is done through trade shows. And I kept waiting to flatten the curve, as they were telling us on the news every 2 weeks, saying trade shows are going to come back. And I was smart enough to hire a genius CEO. She's amazing, Sarah Lehman. And she called me up. We were quickly running out of money. And she goes, "You got to think of something." So we decided, myself and my CRO, Dave Ballman, to give him a quick shout out. I've been working with him for over 20 years at different companies. We had thought of this idea a long time ago, and we decided that we were going to drive from one side of the country to the other in an RV. We were going to take the trade show to the people. Mm. And so we got an RV in California and set out for Ocean City, Maryland, which is Dave's hometown. And we got a camera crew on board. I got some other buddies to help us drive and help with logistics. So we literally took a trade show booth and set it up outside, usually in parking lots or somewhere outdoors. chairs spaced appropriately, but a booth, a table drape, a carpet, ferns, TV screen, and lots of hand sanitizer. We met with 17 destinations, or no, I'm sorry, 42 destinations over 17 days, and crossed the country and filmed every single ounce of it. And we're shooting it up through social media. At the time, there's nothing going on in travel. So everybody was just paying attention to us as we're launching a brand. And thankfully, this was mid-June. So not only do we have the pandemic, but the country is burning down city to city with all the protests. It was scary. It was scary the first few days. We thought we were going to get some haters out there, but everybody really enjoyed it. We took all these meetings, and we had our first client 3 days in, which actually paid for the trip. Thank God. And about a month and a half later, all of a sudden, data and insights, real-time data and insights, became so important during the pandemic for destinations to understand how people are moving, where they're coming from, and because the papers wanted to know, the mayor wanted to know, and so all of a sudden in September we hockey sticked, and we literally went from nearly $0 coming in. We ended up 2020 at roughly $2.2 million in sales. So it was an extreme hockey stick. It was a really fun adventure. Don't know if I would do it again. That's a lot of guys on an RV, but we had a blast. There was nothing else going on, and we really just focused on making it about our audience and not about ourselves, not about our product. We really, we took the film crew. We said, "How are you dealing with COVID? Are people welcome here? What are what are your pain points?" And sharing that from across the internet, and it worked. It worked brilliantly, if I do say so myself.
Well, I think we can all say it too, Darren. I mean, this is unbelievable what you were able to do. Explain to us too, to the person who maybe doesn't understand the tech or understand the tourism side. Sure. Because when James was explaining this to me, James Dixon, we want to love on him because you and I are friends because of our friend.
Yep.
But James was explaining it to me, and it just blew my mind how the marketing aspect, because most of the time a company, when they're marketing, a lot of times they spray and pray. They spray it out to the world and they hope that something catches. Whereas with your software and what you're doing, you have the ability in real time to really move the needle. But can you explain how that actually works?
Yeah. So we take in a lot of huge macro data sets from around the U.S. One set of data is credit card data. Another set is actually geolocation data. So looking at things like cell phones. And now I'll let you know that we don't know who you are. And honestly, the tourism office doesn't care who you are. What they care about is where you're from. They care about what you're interested. So if they're planning more infrastructure, where do they build? Do they need more parks? Do they need more green space? Do they need a Ferris wheel? So understanding those type of things. And again, this is every 24 hours. So we're able to see that somebody's here from Chicago. They visited the museum. They went to a Utes game. They went skiing. And they also like fine dining. So we can see what they're spending per night and what type of hotel they're staying in. And so the third set of data we get is hotel data. So we're able to see help our clients see 6 to 12 months into the future. Again, we don't know who the people are. We don't care. But able to see how full the rooms are. Where do they need to market? Do they need to spend more in Chicago or Phoenix or Dallas? Or which market's better for them and the limited amount of dollars they have? Where do they spend it? And how do they do it as fast as possible, depending on what the occupancy is in town? And tourism offices, they don't have cash registers, so they don't have the advantage of other businesses where they're able to see the credit card swipes and know where people are coming from. Tourism doesn't know that. Government doesn't know that. And we're able to actually put that in front of them in real time, as creepy as it sounds. But it really allows them to spend the taxpayer dollars much more effectively. and also to make real changes that might make a better resident experience with all the visitors coming here.
Well,
I'm talking a lot.
no, it's good. It's good because it's so interesting for us. What about the side of it that the person says, well, knowing my data, keeping my data, this, because it teeters on the side of the scary part for some people that don't understand. You continue to, you let us know that you don't know who the actual person is. Now, when you get the data, do you know that cell phone or that person bought at that restaurant, at that hotel, and then went skiing? Is that all together, or is it just separate entities and you get the congregation of the data?
Well, keep in mind at any given time, given the data sample size, we're only looking at 5 to 10% of visitors here, so we have to take things from there. Okay. And that's on the spending side. Yeah. On the spending side as well. So the data is anonymized on purpose, and we actually go through Zardico goes through. I stepped away. I'll get into that in a moment. But Zardico really goes the extra mile in anonymizing the data, mainly because they're dealing with governments. And if there's going to be backlash, it's going to be against governments. So you better make sure that things are as clean as they possibly can and as anonymous as they can. It really doesn't matter that James Dixon is going from Salt Lake City to Knoxville. What I care about is that how do people from Salt Lake City behave in Knoxville in terms of their spending and where they're staying versus somebody from New York. And so when you're looking at what markets to put your marketing into, or maybe you're getting too much of a wrong audience. They're shopping at McDonald's and filling up their Airbnb with groceries from Walmart. That's really not helping the city.
Yeah.
So
help me with this too, because you had alluded to it just a second ago about stepping away. But when we were having the conversation earlier, and a lot of CEOs or a lot of founders put themselves in the CEO position, and you have a wisdom that I've honestly, being around as many founders as I have, as many entrepreneurs as I have in this world, I've never heard it put to me the way that you did. And this wisdom was you understood what you were good at. When you started Zardico, you understood. And as opposed to you taking everything, which a lot of times founders hold on to it so tight, you actually released. And because of that release, it actually created growth.
It did. Thank you. When I had the opportunity to start this company, I wanted to do it right. And I've spent a career of making one mistake after another and correcting that mistake. And so when I got this opportunity, I thought I have one opportunity to really do this right. And I know what I'm really good at, and I'm really good at go-to-market. I'm really good at getting the teams out there. I'm really good at not just launching a company, but more importantly, really trying to create a movement. Because that's all you have is that emotional energy when you're starting a company or starting anything you're doing. Is you got to have a movement because you need people to buy into it, because you can't pay them full salaries at first. They might be working on stock. They might be working on. So you have to have a movement, something they're passionate about, to really want to go out there and conquer the world. That's what I'm really good at. What I'm not good at, healthcare plans, the red tape that goes into day to day. And I purposely, from day one when we started the company and we had to decide what our titles are, I purposely took the title of president to leave room for a CEO, because I knew if this company was actually going to be successful and grow fast, I needed to bring in a professional CEO. And we brought in Sarah Lehman. Literally, I think she was number 4 to join the company. and to really take us to new heights and to bring a perspective. She wasn't from tourism or software, but to bring a perspective on running a company and making those hard decisions and really giving me the room and the breath to be as good as I can at what I'm really good at. And I think, even 10 years ago, I probably would have said, no, I'm a founder, I'm CEO. And I don't think the company would have grown as well. So it's really about leaving room for others to grow, which I did with the title, and uh, you know, allowing people to be the best they can be. And as a founder, stepping back and watching that magic happen. Obviously, you have guardrails; you want to keep it in,
Yeah.
uh, but knowing yourself well enough to know, hey, if I could be super good at what I'm good at, and I can bring in somebody else to handle the stuff that I'm really not interested in. Yes, I have a big title and it sounds great, but is that really what's best for your company? Honestly,
Yeah.
What's best for your company is that you do what you're super good at. Maybe you are super good at being a CEO. Maybe that's your thing. But if you're not, maybe you're a really good marketer. Maybe you're a really good programmer. Doesn't mean you should be CEO. Let somebody else handle that so you can be the best you can possibly be.
Talk to me too, Darren, about this, because I think people think about growth and they throw it as a overarching term, umbrella term. But we were talking earlier, and you were talking about the difference between the company that goes from 0 to 5 million, from 5 million to 11, and then 11 to, on to 100 or wherever they go. And there's different skill sets in those realms. And if you try and because a lot of people will think, hey, I'm going to start this company out and my vision is to get to 50 million or 100 million or whatever it is, but they're not putting in play the 5 to 11. They're not putting in play the 0 to 5. Can you talk a little bit about that so people understand that, those different concepts?
This thought process was actually very difficult for me, to be honest with you. But as Zartico grew and we went to year 4 and now year 5, going on year 6, when I really stepped back to self-reflect on what I've been super good at across my career, and that's really getting companies from 0 to 10. And I don't mean 0 to 10 million. It could be 0 to 50 employees, but it's really that early growth stage where, again, you have people that are signing on because of you, because it's a movement. And, it takes a certain skill set to deal with the chaos and the ups and downs of a early startup, which, is, if anybody actually knew, they probably wouldn't start their own company, to be honest with you. That's the CEO of NVIDIA said that. He goes, if I actually knew, I would have never started this thing. And that's probably the top valued company in the world. So really understanding that what I'm good at is that early passion play. And that's not only getting employees to come on board, but getting clients to come on board too. Because customers want to be part of a movement. Mm-hmm. That's how they adopt. That's how they get over the risk factor of going with a new product versus what they've been doing for the past, 50 years. It's IBM is safe. The saying goes, nobody ever got fired for buying IBM. But Microsoft came along, and then Apple. Yeah, you're going to outfit your whole company and move over to this platform. You're taking a pretty big risk. You could go with IBM and be really comfortable in your career for the next 20 years. But if you're going to do what's best for the company, sometimes you have to make those hard decisions and then get out of the way. Let it excel. And that's as I always knew that about 5 years was going to be my time. At Zartico, and the nice thing about being one of the founders, founder is the one title they can't take away from you. So, you know, you can no longer be president, which I'm not, but you will always be a founder of a company.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's Wozniak with Apple or what's his face with Microsoft. Anyways, so I knew that I was going to have to step aside and let the really talented people that we were bringing on board take the framework that we created in the early days, take that spirit, take the ethos, if you will, and allow them to think, because you know, founders can't see forest through the trees. They really can't, because as a founder, you are emotionally tied to your baby. It is very personal. It is very personal. And they call it founderitis. There's a word for it. And it's because founders can't see around corners. And that's what you hire. If your company is truly going to be successful, you got to hire people to see around those corners for you and really to take things to the next level. And, you know, I'm great in the 1 to 10, the 11 to 50. There's a lot better people for it. And the best thing I can do is, as a owner and co-founder, is just step out of the way, let them do their jobs, and, you know, try to bite my tongue as much as possible.
So how about with I said legacy business or enterprise. And when I became aware of these things, you know, enterprise business selling for a multiple, generally being gobbled up by either venture capital or a larger company that can utilize the skill set that you have. Legacy in my head was what you called lifestyle, right? A lifestyle business. Yeah. And when you said lifestyle business, you were like, you know, hey, you can grow slow. You know, you take that 10 years, it creates a lifestyle for your family, whatever it is. And then there's the other side that you move faster, right? There's a little different risk, not more risk, but there's different types of risk. Can you talk about the difference between these two types of companies? Because most people who start off a company, and I was included, I wasn't privy to that type of information. So I just thought, literally, grow it, keep it, the heart in it, good. Bring on money, bad, because then you lose the heart. But now as I've grown, I've started to see, no, it's just a decision of, do you want to do an enterprise sale? Therefore, you have to set your company up this way. If you want to do a legacy or a lifestyle, then you're going to set your company up a different way. Can you talk about the differences between the two and how a company would set itself up?
Sure. We had numerous debates early on in the company, and as founders, certainly you don't want to give up any percentage of it as it begins. And so, and I've been at many companies that have raised money. I've been involved in the process. And I was like, no, I think we can grow this on our own. But and that was it. I was like, okay, this be my legacy. And that's what I told people. 10 years from now, I'll still be doing this. I'm going to be really proud of what we created. But what happened in the meantime was that darn RV trip, and so things started hockey sticking really fast. You know, revenue started going up. We kept doubling revenue and doubling revenue and doubling revenue every year, and so it came to a decision time of okay, we have lightning in a bottle. The audience is there. We have product market fit. You know, everything's telling us that we need to grow faster, and competition's nipping at your heels. So, you know, making the very hard decision to give up a percentage of the company in exchange for someone taking equity, but it allowed us to grow really, really fast. So to take advantage of that hockey stick. Now we could have flattened out. We always ran the company like we weren't going to have money, but it allowed us to go in a position of strength when we went to the investors and say, we don't actually need this. We could have nice, slow, steady growth, but if we did have it, here's the growth that we can achieve. And it's really it's a personal decision. You know, I didn't necessarily plan on it, but it just, everything happened so fast. And I thought we needed to take advantage of the lightning in a bottle and keep rolling with the momentum. And that, you know, it comes with a price. You got to give a percentage of the company. You have new people on your board. You have, you know, all the reasons you maybe started a company saying, oh, I'm going to be my own boss and this is going to be amazing. Yeah, there's always somebody there that's you know, certainly giving you a hip check, and so that comes with it. That said, we brought on some brilliant investors, and as my CEO likes to say, they're staying in the tower and out of the cockpit of the plane, and so that's, you know, it's about finding the right investors too, if that's the route you want to take. Otherwise, there's no shame in starting a nice business and growing it slow. It depends on the market you're in. Some markets are completely appropriate for that. You know, you have to make sure the potential growth is there to meet the expectation of the investors, because the dark side of that is really hard if all of a sudden your growth slows and you're not making your numbers. So you have to make sure you're in a position to do that, and it can, you know, I think there's a lot of sizzle, a lot of glamour, and raising money. We raised, I think, $25 million, which, you know, I've never even thought those words could come out of my mouth unless I was talking about somebody else. So, you know, we raised a significant amount of money, and, you know, the company was at that time had a, you know, north of $100 million valuation, which was amazing. And, you know, with that comes a lot of pressure. Pressure is a privilege, as they like to say, and really trying to take things to the next level. And there's no right answer. It really sits with you, and both of them have appeals. It's just, if you're in the wrong business, if you're in the dry cleaning business and you're looking to take on some investment money just so you can, you know, meet your payables and your 30-day gaps and getting paid and so forth, it's probably not the right thing for you. Mm-hmm. To be honest with you, you're better off taking a short-term business loan or something to help get you through. But taking on VC money, that's a whole different pool of sharks. No offense to my VCs.
So, Darren, what are some of the things? I mean, you alluded to it a little bit right there, but some of the pressures that happen when there's money raised, some of the pressures, not only business-wise, but that can impact family, that can impact you as a human being. These are things that, I mean, I like to think that you're Superman. I'd like to think that you're a superhero, but most likely you are Bruce Wayne at times, and not just Batman. So what are some of those things that you've gone through, you know, that's not the, you know, like you said, the shiny, the glamorous, the, you know, oh, wow, I got this valuation of X, but that is the reality of it, the where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, therein lies a big difference from starting a company in your 20s or starting a company when you're 50. You know, you have different responsibilities in your life, and when I talked earlier about, you know, it's starting a movement versus, you know, whatever it may be, but really that movement, because the first people you have to sell is your family, and next is your friends, and your friends are always going to say, oh, that's a great idea. No, I don't want to join. But it's, you have to sell your family, because if they're not going to buy in, you're in for a really hard journey. Starting a business is not for the faint of heart. It's, you know, ups and downs, and you're staring at the books, and, you know, you're staring at a cliff. a lot of times that's really hard to sleep with, to be honest with you. So, having that spouse, having your parents, having them bought in and getting them involved in the movement. You want them to be excited about it and to be able to tell their friends and colleagues that, what's your husband doing or what's your wife doing? They're going to change the world, and this is how they're doing it. Making them proud, because there is a price to pay. There's, like I said, pressure is a privilege, but it's also a pain in the ass. So you can bleep that if you like, but it's it becomes, and it's especially as a founder, because again, it's such an emotional journey. You started this, you told everybody you're starting this, everybody's watching it. And it doesn't go away. It's like having another child in the home. And, your family really needs to share in that journey, and you have to give them something to be proud of when there's maybe nothing coming in. And I got to tell you, for the first year and a half, I had no income. I had no income. It was, and I was putting in super long days. So, I'm getting in late at night. I'm completely distracted when I am home, and I'm making no money. That doesn't give you the power of hand. The power dynamic shifts quite fast in the family, but thankfully, I had a very supportive spouse, and as well as my co-founder, because it's a journey. It's a journey you're both on. You're not on this journey by yourself. I don't care if it's your business and he's doing something else. It's a journey you're both on, and you both have to accept the amount of work that it's going to take, and really, hopefully you're doing this not for your ego, not for that valuation, but you're doing this for the long-term benefit of your family, whether or not it's creating a lifestyle or legacy business, or you're choosing to go, with down the investment road. Either way, these are all bets you're making for your family.
Wow.
And so you have to have somebody that's standing there at the table with you, rolling the dice, because otherwise either your business is going to fail or your relationship's going to fail, one of the two. So you really need to have buy-in. And I'll tell you a personal story, and that's my last company I was at. My wife and I, gosh, we went through years and years of trying to have children, and we went through 6 rounds of IVF, which, not only expensive, but you're injecting crazy juice in your spouse every other month. And we finally got to the end of it. We were in a parking lot and at the Philadelphia airport. We got a call from the doctor, and the doctor said, it's just not going to be possible. That was a lot to absorb. And she was working at a very big social media company at the time. This is in 2016. And I was working at my company. And we both sunk ourselves. We didn't know what to do. So that part of the dream was over. So we both sunk ourselves into work. And I'm not kidding you. Literally flew over 350,000 miles that year. Wow. I would go to Dubai. I would come home for a day or two. I go off to Japan. And she was doing the same thing. So, 2016, it was the election year, a lot of stuff going on in social media, a lot of heat. She was working 18 hours a day. And, it wasn't teamwork. We were both just kind of dealing with things in our own way. And, it wasn't healthy. Probably another year, the marriage would have been cracked, because we were both on two individual paths versus doing something together. And really, in the decision to start this company, this was, while yes, it was me, but again, getting that buy-in and having them along for the journey, the highs, the lows, um, it's been great. And just having that person there, because it's, again, you're going to need that emotional support,
Yeah.
whether it's a co-founder or your family. They have to be there and they have to be proud of you. So even if it fails, you're giving it everything you had, and they have some skin in the game too, and you're all proud of it. You can all walk away being proud. That was a pretty long story, so
No, that's a great
apologies,
story.
but
Too, also, Darren, talk to me too about what set you up early on, in whether it be in your family or your upbringing, that helped to be able to give you the permission to take the type of risks that you're taking and see that these things are possible. Because you even said it just a second ago when you said raising 25 million, I could see it in your eyes. Like if you're listening on Apple, you heard it in his inflection in his voice. If you're watching on Spotify or YouTube, you could see it in his face when he said 25 million. Then he said, Darren, you said, I that was a number that I would have thought maybe I'm talking about somebody else, but I'm doing it. But your normal now is most people's like stratosphere.
right.
What parts of your upbringing, let's go back early on,
Yeah.
that set you up to be able to have a foundation to take the type of risks that you're taking now?
First of all, I had two really amazing parents. That having that family unit certainly helped. But I was raised in Montana. I grew up working on our. It's tough to call it a ranch because anything under 1,000 acres is kind of a hobby ranch in Montana. But I worked on plenty of other ranches as well. I just grew up in a ranch atmosphere, and I had. It wasn't our primary income. My mom and dad were both professionals. My mom's a microbiologist, and my dad sold Allstate insurance. And I didn't understand until I actually moved away what that brought to me in terms of character, in terms of grit, and what it means to and starting a company, or just how you approach your work life in general. And that's that when you grow up, on a ranch, and you're growing up with animals, and you're growing up raising a crop, whatever it may be, there's no days off. There's no days off. You can't call in sick because, things die. If it's the middle of the winter, the cattle might die. If they don't get fed in the morning, they don't get fed at night. You don't get a day off. You decide not to move the water for the crops, they're not going to have the yield. So things are life and death. And when I got out and got into business, I said, okay, we're not talking life or death here. We're talking about marketing insights. I'm not saving lives, but it's that type of intensity that gets you up every day. And, you realize that, yes, this isn't life or death, but I've been there. I know what it takes. And I've worked in travel and tourism for 24 years now to date myself. But I had a mom, they had us very, very young. So when my sister and I were done with high school, my mom and dad were 40, 41, and they went on to this, my mom took this whole separate career, and really my mom was my biggest inspiration for my career. God rest her soul. She passed this past year. Anyways, she goes and takes a job with the State Department, and they end up they go from this quiet little 1,000-person town in Montana, where sometimes we'd ride horses down to the school. I graduated with 26 kids in my high school class. That's how small we're talking. And, so here they go. Their first assignment is Russia. So my parents moved from Montana to Moscow, and to a completely different way of life, different language, and they're living at an embassy in a whole different world working for the State Department. And I was just, if it were my dad, I think he would have just moved to North Dakota and got a different ranch. But he knew my mom put in time. he's like, now it's your time. And so she ended up going all around the world. And it was really, this taught me from living in this insular world in Montana, which was a great upbringing, by the way, to really getting to know a whole globe and to see her bravery. And they were living in Cairo. And next thing I know, I'm standing at the Red Sea, stuff I learned about in Sunday school. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's Mount Sinai. This is some Moses stuff here. And I mean, and it was quite humbling. No, I'm coming from, that small a town, and now I'm looking at the Red Sea, and I'm in a completely different culture, completely out of my comfort zone, requiring different clothes and all these, State Department protocols and just seeing my mom just marched right through it. She could go into the smallest Bedouin town in the Middle East and just march right through there. Next thing you know, she's invited into a home and she's bought free carpets and a donkey. And so we, and she was in her early 60s and she was literally in Baghdad during the war. I was like, Mom, most moms are like, you should be home cooking turkey. I'm like, what do you say? She's got the helmet, the flak vest on. She's standing outside an armored vehicle. I'm like, what? I'm like, I can't even comprehend what you're doing. But she really, it was that inspired me to find a career where I could see the world, I can make a difference. And seeing, my mom used to love to say, when it's my time, it's my time. The Lord knows when to take me. And so she didn't worry about bullets flying, and, she just didn't worry about that stuff. And it encouraged me to not worry about it either, and to go out and embrace all these different cultures and different types of people. And every time I go someplace new, I'm off to New Zealand and Australia here in a couple of weeks, and I'm just tickled. I realize that I'm quite lucky, but it's really my mother, and just kind of her bravery in the storm, watching her navigate the entire planet. I mean, they literally worked on the entire planet and would go into war zones, and they were in Jakarta. They were in Jakarta in Indonesia during the huge tsunami that was there, and I can only talk to him once a week, but it was my inspiration for saying, you know what, I'm going to constantly put myself in situations I'm uncomfortable in, and it has allowed me to be in learning the protocols. It's allowed me to be successful in cultures that don't even speak my language, different religions, different everything, and to be able to sit down there and figure out how do we benefit each other, and how to, most importantly, especially when you're dealing with anything outside the U.S., is really trying to build that bridge and trust with a different culture, so that you're doing business 12 time zones away in Dubai, so with a government that's a monarchy versus a democracy. And, how do you navigate that? And watching my mother navigate that has allowed me to be very successful pretty much anywhere I touch down around the world. I pay him no mind. I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's talk about you. And I think that's the key, is always talking about, as you said in the very beginning of the call, is really focusing on who's in front of you and what's important to them. And if you have a long enough conversation there, have some coffee, have some tea, have a beer, whatever it may be, really listening and understanding, then you'll figure out how you're going to be able to help them. How do you help them? That's how I approach it. Whether it's my employees, how do I make them more successful? Eventually to the point where I don't need to be here anymore. You know how to do this job. probably better than me, and you're bringing better ideas to the table. To to my clients as well. How do I elevate them in front of their communities, and help the local restaurant understand how much food do they need to be stocking in the freezer? What's their staffing need to be like in 2 weeks, so that they can better run their business and be more successful for their families, who's taken a big risk on them. The same as I talked about 20 minutes ago, and that their families are in it with them. So the more we can empower people through insights and real-time knowledge on how to better run, how to make better decisions for their businesses, is great. Now we're moving to AI, where things are going to get more and more predictive, and it's a good friend of mine, Jason Linder. He's a CEO of a company called Ripe here. He's like, we're moving from a data economy to an answer economy. People just want answers, and that's what AI is really powering. It's not how have I been doing, and maybe what should I do next. It's going to tell you what to do next with a high degree of probability. That's going to allow us to get more and more efficient at every, whether it's what I do or, the various companies that I'm working with right now, to, all of them are, what's this AI thing? How do we crack it? But ultimately, what's the benefit of AI to the person sitting across from you? And I think moving to that answer economy is going to allow them to be the best at whatever it is they're super good at. Like I said, I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at.
Yeah.
And that stretches to employees as well. The employees you hire in the 1 to 20 or 1 to 40 mode are not necessarily the employees you need to get you from 11 to 50 versus 1 to 10. 1 to 10 employees are different breeds.
Yeah.
Then not a lot of people survive that chasm, and the problem is with that, and anybody who's been through it probably is shaking their head, nodding their head right now. But the problem is when you're dealing with younger employees, they don't understand that. And when I made the announcement last February that I was going to be stepping aside, I wanted to lead by example for those employees I knew we were going to have to say goodbye to, because they were good in that 1 to 10, but we needed 11 to 50 employees now, and it's a different skill set. And you know what? These employees are going to be super successful. Maybe they'll graduate to 11 to 50 if that's where they want to go, or they're going to be super, super valuable in that 1 to 10 space for the hundreds and thousands of companies that start up every single year. There's no lack of opportunity. You just have to understand what your limitations are. And that's harder for young people. So I really, a big part of me making the announcement at our all hands meeting, I think roughly at that time we had about 100 people. There was a lot of gas, but I knew we were going to have to make a lot of hard changes. And I said, I'm going to lead. I am going to lead, because I knew I needed different people in some of those positions. And I wanted to say, I have no shame in being really good at this, and you shouldn't either.
Yeah. So what have you learned? You're sitting on the board of 5 different startups right now, and which they're all very fortunate to be able to have you on the board for a company.
Thank you, Kelly.
Well, it's massive. What have you learned about this AI thing? Because I think that there seems to be two polar sides. One is, let's go for it. This is going to be amazing. Everything's going to be efficient. This is the wave of the future. Then there's the other side, the other polar side, that everyone's going to lose jobs. This is going to, take away human touch and all these things. There's not really I don't hear a lot of people in the middle saying, like, I want to enhance the personal touch by utilizing AI, because in the event that I'm not doing those rudimentary jobs that, would take me hours and hours. And I even find it within the podcast, right? There's workflows that I have, like with this now, that, within the I mean, literally within an hour of us recording, all your stuff will be edited, all your clips will be done, and all your social actually will be out on social, on all our TikTok, our Instagram, our LinkedIn, all those things. You'll be out on them promoting this interview so they could come and spend some more time with you. But if I was doing that manually, there's no way that it could.
Yeah. Well, boy, you've cracked a big can of worms there.
I like cans of worms, Darren.
Yeah. Well, to your point, I think AI is going to make us more and more efficient and allow us to do a lot more with a lot less time. And you think about the amount of businesses that are going to be empowered by that, and there's actually a lack of really, especially when you're trying to get highly efficient like you are and doing all the, there's not a lot of labor out there for that right now. I know the job market looks really flush, but in these highly specialized jobs, and that's really what AI is coming along to do. And I'll be frank with you, it is going to cost jobs. And it's but it's some of the mundane tasks, that really it just makes more and more efficient. And I think what AI should allow you to do, you can either kick and fight and say it's taking jobs and this is horrible, and the genie's out of the bottle. AI is happening. I mean, I think President Trump just announced a $500 billion investment yesterday or the day before in AI and computing centers. It's happening. So it just like, I'm old enough to remember when they first started putting robots in the car factories, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, they're taking jobs." Yep, they are. But you can either gripe about it or see it as an opportunity to take the mundane out and say, "What am I really good at? What am I super passionate about? What can I create a movement around in my department?" Because those are the people that are going to stay, and it's it's the mundane tasks. It's the all the writing and the booking of orders and all that's going to be automated. It's all going to be automated. So it certainly will take some jobs, but hopefully the jobs it's taking, it allows people to take a step up, and it's going to create a lot more complex, or a lot more jobs across the board through small businesses being super efficient. But they're going to need to have people that know how to run the AI. I mean, I've been working in technology my whole life. I know how to use Chat GPT. I'm not the brightest kid. I was a solid C student with a good personality. There's plenty of smart people. And really, it's running this AI. How do you take all these tools that are available out there and help this business owner as an employee or becoming a business owner? How do you make it more efficient so that you can squeeze a little more margin? You can pay people. You'll pay people more because their skill set is going to be a lot more advanced than writing up an insertion order or whatever it may be. You don't need to do that anymore. It's going to keep going, but I think we just have to embrace it like every other big technology change we've had. It's coming. There's nothing we can do about that now. So it's more a matter of how do you embrace it, and if you're more advanced in your career, how do you find the right employees to embrace it, to make you more efficient, to make your business more efficient? Because if your business is growing, you're either going to need to hire more employees, or you're going to get a lot more efficient at what you're doing. And so hopefully the employees you have will get more efficient, and there'll be more businesses created because of it. You and I could talk about this
No, I mean, and this is a conversation, and right into this is, I want to rewind, but I want to add, I want to continue on with this part. So I want to rewind and add a little something to this. Some you were talking about earlier was if you listen to what people are saying enough, if you listen to them long enough, you'll start to understand what it is that they need, and then you can provide what they need. That's what you were talking about, right? And when you do that and help people to become more efficient, more profitable, spend more time with their families, have a better life, that part grows everybody. Let's bring that into this part when we were talking about the efficiencies, because we had we had a conversation earlier also that it really interested me. Before I understood the difference between the motivation of a private business and a government business, it really frustrated me with things that a person in the private sector, which I've been in my whole life, whereas when I would speak with a person who worked in government or in that aspect, it would frustrate me sometimes because I didn't understand the model of and we were just discussing this the other day, a couple of friends of mine, where we said, if you're in the private sector and you have a surplus in your budget, you actually celebrate with your staff. High five. We have a higher profit margin. We're more efficient. In the event that you work in government and that surplus comes in, you freak out and want to spend it as quickly as possible so your budget will be there the next year. This is something that was foreign to me in my head, although once you understand those things, you can speak to a person in a different realm. Can you talk about the differences between, because you deal in both, and you've dealt with both sides, right?
Oh boy.
Can I say for the record, Darren, too, I noticed a difference in the expression on your face when I just said what I said. And I noticed you sat forward towards the camera. You went into that very, oh my God, like, how are we going to bridge this bad boy? But it's a conversation. It's a conversation that most people don't have.
I think it even happens in the private sector, especially if the businesses or corporations are large enough. You'll anywhere where there's money going out. So let's say marketing, not to pick on them, or biz dev. If they're getting to the end of the year with a surplus and they're going into budget season come October, they are going to try to get rid of that money because they're going to be afraid that their budget's going to get cut the next year. They said, oh, you were super efficient. We grew by 30% last year, and you only spent, $15 million of your $20 million budget. All of a sudden, that just reeks of panic. So it's not only government where that happens. Trust me, it's happening. I'm guilty of it myself. It's happening on a corporate level as well, because if the company grows, they want bigger budgets the next year. If you're able to be super efficient, trust me, the people at the C level are going to go, that's great. Our margins are better. Our investors are happier. But what's going on down below? That's what you need to keep an eye on. And government, to your point, it's certainly not the most efficient beast in the barn. And when you start getting back to our AI conversation, where like I said, it is going to make things more efficient, and government does not actually reward itself for being more efficient.
Why is that, Darren? Why, like, when you say that statement, and I want everyone, you can't rewind today, but you could scrub back. That's a technology, right? You can't rewind. Yeah. But back in the day, when Darren and I both know about rewinding, if this was a cassette tape or an 8-track, I would want you to physically rewind that statement and say that being efficient and being more efficient is sometimes not the desire of certain entities. That to me is like, why would that be?
Well, I think you certainly see with the last election, people are telling the government they need to get more efficient. Whether or not it happens, we'll see. Um, I so government, ultimately they're there to grow jobs. So the more jobs they offer, the hundreds and millions of people that go to work for government on a city, county, state, federal level, they're actually, you know, it's actually a win if they're adding more employees rather than getting more efficient. So ultimately, save for defense technology, AI is potentially going to make things more efficient and actually cost some of those government jobs, and that's really not what they're incentivized around. They're incentivized around actually growing, and to your point, making sure that budget's at a zero sum at the end of the year. Hopefully, you're showing growth, and then you're there asking for more money so you can grow more staff. It's government, and that was when Zydeco first entered the market. Really, that was one of our big pitches, was saying, hey, we are going to save you this amount of time. We're going to save you this amount of labor. You're actually not going to need these positions anymore. They're like, whoa. Hey, I'm like, or, we can train your current staff. We thought we were doing a great, because things tightened up so much during COVID. We thought that was the right pitch, where, a lot of government employees were just kind of waiting COVID out and waiting to be able, they're like, no, there's going to be a ton of money. We're going to be able to grow again. And you guys are talking about not growing, getting more efficient. So, probably, especially early on, the first couple of years, our biggest obstacle to growth was really the status quo. And you know what? They've done it this way for the past 20 years. They have 10 people counting surveys, putting all that data into spreadsheets, taking those spreadsheets, putting it into a PowerPoint, taking the PowerPoint, put it in a board PDF, and so on and so forth. Now AI will take care of AI, and companies such as Zydeco and others can, they can make that 10 times more efficient. Whether or not they want to go there, that's a tough one to answer when you're dealing with government. But like I said, it's not just government. You will see it in big companies where they're, I've been in sales my whole life. I knew to call people out in November. I knew they'd have extra budget that they need to hide and get rid of. I'm like, yeah, I'm happy to have your burn barrel for you. Just go ahead and throw your money right over here. So,
Darren? What are some of the things that we might think sound wild now? Like if you and I, when we were 10 years old, and I'll tell you a story. There was a time where there was a teacher. We found out his first name, and he was a science teacher in Lompoc, California. And his name was Ned. His name was Ned, but he was Mr. Shores. And Mr. Shores was known to be like, he was just a little raw. But we found out Ned, and then every so often in class, one of the kids would just yell out, Ned, and he would get so pissed. But I remember one day he said, I just want to tell you guys, this was maybe I was 10th grade, 11th grade, whatever it was. He said, I want to tell you guys that at some point, it's coming in the future, there's going to be this little tiny device that you're going to carry around in your pocket. Everyone's going to be able to know where you're at. They're going to be able to track you. You're going to be able to communicate with a bunch of different people, whoever you want, just from your pocket. And all of us were like, Ned, you're crazy. There is no way on earth that that's going to happen. Then I remember a guy come in. His name was Frank, and Frankie. And Frankie was awesome. He was at the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. And he came in and sat down, and he said, hey, man, just want to tell you about this crazy technology that's coming. I said, what is it, Frankie? He said, man, there's going to be a mobile GPS on you at all times. This was years later, but it still hadn't hit because the iPhone wasn't around at the time. We had like little flip phones, whatever. We had those little bricks from Nextel with the where you at stuff. You know what I'm talking about. And Frankie told me about this GPS, and I was like, man, Frankie, you're crazy. Now I was on my dog walk the other day, and my phone buzzes. I look down. It's a video call from a kid who I had met, and we have a conversation over video, and we're face to face. And that's just normal, and then I go back to my dog walk. What are you privy to, because you're in the tech space, that is wild to us now that is going to be commonplace in the years to come?
Wow. Honestly, it was very easy for me to see the internet coming. It was very easy for me to see, mobile coming up. It was social media as well. You could definitely see the ember smoke in there, and it kind of came in these big 10-year waves. Now it's actually, even to be quite honest, it's even frightening to me, a person that's been in tech for 20 plus years, that the iterations are so fast now. So when you look at the launch of Chat GPT,
is that the dog walker? The dog walker's coming, right? Hey, can we meet? The dog walker. Yeah, it's funny too, Darren, because before we started recording,
people don't know I'm in my garage.
Darren was like, the dog walker might come and we could cut it out. I said, no, we ain't cutting out the dog walker. We're bringing in the dog. The dog. What kind of dog is it?
So unfortunately, we just lost a dog last week. He was 150-pound Saint Bernedoodle. He was 9.5, which is a good run for a dog that size, but never easy. And then we had, my wife had adopted another dog while I was out in Dubai last year on business, and so it's a giant Schnauzer doodle. Anyways, it's my first girl dog I've owned. She's definitely a bit of a diva, but it's been nice having her here to get us through this past week. So I call her our bridge dog. So we won't be getting another dog anytime soon, but it's nice having her here. Anyways, I think I got off topic there.
Take me to the iterations. You said that you talked about the iterations and how fast they're going.
Right. So I was able to see all this coming, and actually, you could start businesses and roll them up and get prepared and do a nice pivot. And now, I think Chat GPT started in December of 22. Maybe it's December 23. Yeah. And within a month and a half, it had more subscribers than it took Instagram to do like in 7 years. And they are iterating through. I mean, you think about that. It took them 7 years to get to that kind of subscriber level. It took ChatGPT a month and a half. That is crazy adoption. And the amount of tools that are being built off of this are just mind-boggling, and how fast they're coming. But I'm also, another thing I'm noticing in the market is scale fast, fail fast, and that these things are iterated so fast that your company could be left behind or could be a failure within 8 to 12 months because you're not iterating fast enough. And so I think that's the iterations are now down to a yearly basis. It's like Samsung releasing a phone every year. It's if not monthly. And Yeah, I'm still waiting for flying cars. I keep seeing articles. So since I was a youngin, I was like, when that gets here, that'd be fascinating. But I can remember my first AI presentation I went to, a guy by the name of Dave Carruthers, actually here in the Salt Lake Basin, and he was showing me this stuff, and I was like, oh no, that's not exactly what I said. But I I looked at it, and I was thinking about my own business at the time, as well as other businesses I'm potentially working with, and going, you know, they're already behind. It's tougher for a legacy business to pivot into AI than it is for a brand new business that starts up, on a AI, creating an AI platform.
Yeah.
So I, like I said, I think the biggest thing is moving from a data and question economy more to an answer economy,
Okay.
and that's going to allow every type of business to iterate just that much faster if you're willing to lean into it. And everybody should be. There's lots of courses. What I would say is look at them with a skeptical eye, because there's a lot of shysters out there trying to
Yeah.
trying to run it up. But it is important to really to get to know it. And what it's AI is going to touch every part of our life, from aviation to I buy pretty much the same groceries every month,
Yeah.
at probably a very similar cadence. And it's quite funny because we studied a lot of human patterns. And so you can see the frequency of how people travel to, like, their local grocery store. But you can see that they go to Costco once a month.
Yeah.
Costco's a bit further of a drive. So there's all these patterns, and all these patterns have been happening for years. So, AI is going to know. And there's literally cameras in my refrigerator right now. It's a Samsung. It has cameras in the refrigerator. I don't even have to open the door. I just touch the screen. But it knows. It knows when I don't have Diet Coke. The question is, are you gonna allow it to do it? And so far, it's been a very human process, in that you're on Amazon. You're like, yes, I need this delivered once a month or every 3 months. That's your choice. You could be wrong, could be right. But AI is actually going to know. It's going to make things more efficient. It should help. Ultimately, it's going to help you be more efficient with predicting what your spends are going to be, and what you can do and what you can't do based upon what you want to have in the bank. And when I say you got to get up every day and get after it, I mean, everything can die. Your marriage can die if you don't get up every day and feed it. Your bank account's going to die if you don't get up every day and feed it. There's all kinds of different analogies there, and I think AI is going to help us all feed these things a little bit more efficiently. Reminds me to go tell my wife I love her, and
Well,
hey, your
think,
wife is looking pretty unhappy today. Maybe you should go upstairs.
Well, I think Darren. Also, I was talking to one of my friends who's an artist, and he was talking about AI, and he's like, the art generation with AI and stuff. And I said, this is what I feel. This is just my personal opinion. But I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express at one point, so I feel that it's valid. Is that I believe that with the onslaught of AI and things like that, the personal touch and the craft of things is going to get more valuable. It's not going to diminish it. And that's where I want people, in my head, this is what I encourage people, is the Darrens of the world who, I mean, Darren, although you're a master in the tech space, you have built a phenomenal company in the tourism space, in that data analytics and in the tech. But in my head, you're a master with people. And that's the reason why all those things work. Does that make sense? And so I want to compliment you. I started the podcast because of my
Thank
two
you.
kids, which is Maddox and McKenna. And
Okay.
I didn't want them to be, I didn't want them to worship idols. I wanted them to be inspired by icons. And so you being one of those icons, Darren Dunn,
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly.
what advice would you have for Maddox and McKenna? And if you could call yourself Uncle Darren, it would be awesome.
One, learn another language, a hard one, like Chinese. Two, I think both parents and children alike, there's so much pressure with social media, and it's easy to get on this bandwagon. But it's important to understand that every picture that goes up on Facebook or one of the social platforms, they're actually allowed to use that. They have equal ownership of that photo. If they want to make a billboard with your family on it, they could, and there's nothing you could do. So certainly there's that, and I think no amount of AI or tricks and gimmicks and iPads, nothing's going to replace actual parenting, and nothing's going to replace it. It can't. That's the human touch. That's the values. That's the culture that you're going to build. And I hope your children, and I'm sure they will, knowing you, really want to go out there and give more than they feel like they can get. And I feel like if you're doing that every day, your life is going to be rich. Your life is going to be very rich. And it's been my philosophy throughout my career, is elevate others. Eventually your ship is going to rise. It will rise with the tide of others. And so the more I can elevate them, and be there for them, and the more I can introduce them to great people like yourself and James and many of the others that we were lucky enough, Dr. Walt, that we got to work with there in Tennessee. You feel it. You feel it when we're talking to those audiences, right? You can feel when, if you're on stage to elevate them, not to talk about yourself, but to really elevate them. That's when, and I think every child, that's where doing things like volunteering and understanding the amount of dopamine that's released in your brain by actually giving and helping, and it's been a big part of my life, volunteering, and whether it's in Africa or here at home, and every time I do it, my vessel is full. My heart is full. When I came home from Tennessee, that was the most miserable drive to that venue that we went to, and I was white knuckling the whole way. The next day I was driving back to Nashville, and I was so filled with joy from that audience and talking to people, and especially the one-on-one time we had afterwards, really, where I was at least able to offer them my perspective on some of the things that they're facing, and also letting them know that this isn't glamorous. This isn't all sparkles and unicorns. It's a lot of hard work, and being there to help support that, knowing the fatigue it can take on yourself in terms of your mental health, as well as your family, and reminding people that you're building this. If you're getting a lot of grief about the company and the time you're spending in it, you're not including that other person enough. They have to be there on that journey. You have to make it a movement, and that movement starts at home. I don't know if that really answered your question, but
it does. It does, Darren.
Just putting a lot of passion out there.
Well, I love the fact that I get to share you with my, share my friends. Like, and this is a thing that I tell people all the time when they listen to the podcast, or they get to listen to the show, they share it, whatever it is. I just keep telling them I have really cool friends, and they keep freaking out. Like, how do you get a chance to be able to be around a Darren? And the reason why I get a chance to be around you is because you're my friend. It's not somebody who I said, oh, wow, their company was valued at this and they did this. No, I wanted to bring to this audience, I want to bring Darren, my friend, who I met in person for the first time, having some cheesecake that we were both kind of wondering if it was going to be okay. Right. You know what I mean? When we were sitting at lunch and having the cheesecake and then sitting in the green room and, going through different emotions and things like that. But I mean, you're better than advertised, man. This isn't going to be the only time you're on the show. I want to have you on again. There's so much more to be able to talk about, but also too, what I love what you just said, was that you have spent some time with me, and it might be time to go up and tell your wife that you love her. And so
That's right.
I love you, brother. You are amazing.
Love you too, man.
It is my absolute pleasure. And this is the thing that Darren's not going to say, but I'm going to say is if you have the chance, if you have a company, a conference, and if you have the chance to have Darren come and share with your audience, it's not going to be the norm. It's not going to be the guy who's trying to impress everybody. It's going to be the person who makes the audience feel a completely different way about where they are at. And so I want to compliment you, man. My hat's off to you.
Thank
You're
you,
incredible.
Kelly. This has been it's been a true joy, and having Mr. James Dixon come into my life because he was sitting next to me on a plane, and I could tell how much he was giving to me from that seat and what he was telling me that night. And I don't talk to anybody on flights, and I talked to this guy for 2.5 hours. I got off that plane and I was like, oh man, I was like, who is this guy? And that's allowed me to meet amazing people such as yourself and develop new friendships, and just add another brick to the foundation of hopefully of goodness. Yeah. It's not great grammar right there. That's my Montana
that's good.
grammar.
That's what it's the real Darren. And so I love you, my man. It has been an absolute pleasure. Go love on your wife. And Darren, you're officially off the hot seat. If you want to meet Darren too, if he's going to be in Utah, April 12th, the Vibe Experience, I tell you, it is going to be unbelievable, and Darren's going to be around for that.
I will be. I'll block it off right now, Kelly. You take care. My best.
Sounds good.
My best to the family.
You got
Talk
it.
to you soon.
Love you, buddy.
Right,
Peace,
bye.
love, and soul.
Love you too.
Nothing more on my mind. I got to shine, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in.